I've been working with creatives for a little over 20 years now. And if there's one thing I know about us, it's that client management can be difficult at best, but it's a necessary part of the role no matter what your art medium is. So as a creative professional managing clients, it's really crucial to your success. It's just as important, honestly, as honing your craft. Client management goes beyond delivering excellent work. It's about setting expectations, building relationships, and ensuring a smooth collaboration process. Today on Creativity Made Easy, we're going to break down what client management looks like for creative professionals. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the show, everybody. My name is Dustin Peed, creative coach and consultant. Everything I do on the podcast or the website or coaching, consulting, the book writing, the blog posting, all the things, all of it is to help creatives know themselves, their process, and their team so that they can create greater things together, including today's episode about client management. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube, would love for you to like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you haven't already on this episode. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform, I would love for you to rate a review, whatever your platform allows you to do. All of that stuff that I just asked you to do really helps to get this content out further to those like you who can benefit from it. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, just feel free to copy and paste the link of wherever you're watching and listening to this and share it with your friends right now. I would super appreciate that support. You can find me on Instagram. I already said YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the places at Dustin Peed, P-E-A-D. You can learn more about how I can help you or your team at dustinpeed.com. And lastly, my book that just came out a few weeks ago, Growing Upward, is available for purchase right now at dustinpeed.com as well. But soon it'll be hitting Amazon.com, Walmart.com. And if you're here in the West Georgia area where I live, you can find a copy at Underground Bookstore in Carrollton, Georgia as well. All right, on to the show. Today, we're going to talk about client management. And I know for many of you might be listening to this, you might be going like, well, Dustin, you were in the church creative world for over 20 years. What do you know about client management? I would say that where you might think that I didn't have clients in that realm, I had many clients. So there's senior leadership. They were a client, right? And then every single department in the church was also a client as well. So I had kids ministry was a client, student ministry was a client, family ministry was a client, missions outreach was a client, operations department, they were a client. Anyone who needed anything created, they came to us at the creative department. And so we managed all those clients, and we were managing probably 50 or so open projects at a time, all the time. And I did that for, like I said, almost 20 years. And so, I've learned a lot over the years about that. And in the last year and a half or 2 years or so, since I've been getting into the more kind of public workspace, not whatever the opposite of nonprofit, the for-profit, I guess you would say, workspace, I've learned even more about what client management looks like, managing my own clients, but also helping my clients who are typically professional creatives, helping them manage their clients, because managing projects doesn't come without managing clients. And so there's some things that I've picked up along the way that I want to share with you today. Again, I mentioned this. Most of this content is covered if you rather read than listen to me yap about it, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio podcast platform. You can find this article or this blog post that I wrote at dustinpeed.com. You can click on the read button and you'll find the article there called Client Management 101. And so there's just some things that I want to share with you today that if you're struggling with the client management piece, here's some things to consider. And I would encourage you not to do all of them at once, but just take one thing today of these 7 things or so that I'm going to share with you, and pick that one thing to focus on over the next 30, 45 days to really up your game with your client management. And I promise if you put some intentionality and focus behind it, that you're going to see a big difference. So let's get into it here. The first thing that I think you should consider when understanding how to best manage your clients is to set some clear expectations from the start. Now, many of you may not even know what your expectations are of your client, or what your expectations that you're telling your client that you're going to have of yourself, or your company or your team. That'd be the best place to start, honestly, is just to be able to say, what are some of the things that we want from you as a client, and what are some of the things that we are going to give you as a client. Those are expectations. If you can establish those from the jump, that's the best thing, right? So these are things like what your process is, what your timeline is, what the deliverables are of the project. You want to provide clients with a clear outline of how you're going to work, and if there's any potential roadblocks along the way, what those look like and what you're going to do when and if they arise. It's all kind of front loading that communication as possible. So here's a pro tip that I actually just recently developed for my own self. And this is just as simple as going to a Google form or a type form or something like that and creating this form, but creating a client onboarding document or a form that will outline the entire project scope, what the key milestones are, deadlines, if there's payment involved, what that looks like, what the expectations are there, will really help manage those expectations and ensure that both you and your client are on the same page from the get-go. So first tip, set those clear expectations from the start. All right, second thing to help you with your client management I want to share with you today is to establish strong communication. Now, this obviously goes with setting those boundaries from the start, but it also is throughout the entire project. The effective communication really is the foundation of any kind of successful client relationship. Let's face it, it's the foundation of any successful relationship, whether it's your marriage, your friendships, your coworkers, whatever. Effective communication, not just communication, effective communication. So don't hesitate to ask for clarification if there needs to be clarification. Create some open lines of communication that can prevent misunderstanding and build trust. Get everybody on the same page about what the mode of communication is going to be. Are you and your client going to communicate over email, text, phone call, Slack, Google Chat, Zooms, whatever it is? Go ahead and establish that, like we said in step one and tip number one, establish that from the start, but then be sure to establish the strong, those strong boundaries, those strong forms of communication throughout the entire process. So set regular check-ins as a pro tip. Or progress updates with your clients. This can be weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the project's duration. I know one of my clients, we will send any open project that we have, we will send kind of a status report to all of those clients that he has on Mondays. So if you have an open project with him and his agency, every Monday you're going to get an email saying this is where we're at and this is what's next. This is what's coming. If we need anything from you, we'll list that in there. If not, it's just letting you know, established right on, this is where you're at. So they never want to leave the client wondering about what's going on. So it allows you to gather some feedback. You can make adjustments before moving too far down the wrong path if you need to. That's what those weekly check-ins or bi-weekly check-ins will help you do. All right, let's get to number 3. Tip number 3, be proactive with feedback, like we just talked about towards the end of our last one. Receiving feedback is an essential part of creative work. And I know many of us are very sensitive and we don't like it, but we need it. So instead of waiting for your client to point out something that they don't like, ask for feedback early on and ask for it often. This will help you stay aligned with their vision and prevents misalignment that could derail the project very quickly. We've all been there. So a pro tip here on being proactive with feedback: when you deliver drafts or early versions of your work, go ahead and ask some very specific questions. Make it specific, not broad. For example, does the tone of this design align with your brand or what you had envisioned already? Do you feel like maybe this video captures the message that you originally wanted to convey? This encourages some thoughtful feedback, and it helps avoid those vague responses that we hate that just say, "Oh, I don't like it." Well, what don't you like about it? I don't know. I just don't like it. It's because the reason we get those answers is because we haven't been asking good questions. So be proactive with the feedback and ask good questions along the way. All right, tip number 4. I just covered this recently in a blog post and in a podcast episode, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but you got to manage and keep under control the project scope creep. If you want to have successful client management, you got to get a handle on this. And so, if you're new to that term or you missed that episode, scope creep happens when the project expands beyond that original agreement without any additional compensation or time adjustment whatsoever. That's scope creep. So while it's natural for clients to request changes, it's important to address those requests in a way that maintains your boundaries and ensures you're fairly compensated for any extra work. So even if you're in the church world, we all know the pastor will, or the boss, or the whoever's the head of the project will come in the last minute. Oh, I didn't think about this. Let's do this. Or, you know what? I had a great idea this morning while I was in the shower. Now let's do this. And so it keeps adding on and adding on and changing and changing. And that's when scope creep can happen. So here's how you can manage project scope creep. Pro tip: when clients request something outside of the original scope, be upfront about how it's going to affect the impact, how it's going to impact the timeline or the budget, right? Just tell them straight up. This is, yes, we can do that, but here's what it's going to take, and here's how it's going to affect everything else that we've already committed to doing. Just be upfront about it. You can frame it as a positive by offering different options of how to move forward. You can adjust the timeline. You can adjust additional fees for the new work if you need to. Whatever it takes. You can be positive about it. You don't have to be so negative about it. You're like, well, oh great, well, yeah, I mean, we can do that, but gosh, that's going to be a real pain. It's going to be a big headache, and you're going to hate it, and I'm going to hate it. Like, you don't have to do that. Just be like, hey, you know what? Sure, we can do that. Just want to be honest and upfront with you. If we do that, it's going to take us 2 additional weeks, which is going to raise our budget by about 20%. Are you okay with that? If you are, then we can talk about that. But I just want to be upfront about it and say this is what it's going to take. That's managing project scope creep, and that is how you can successfully have some client management with you and your clients. All right, let's get into the next one. Got 3 more to share with you. Number 5, build relationships, not transactions. Build relationships, not transactions. People will know that you care if people know that you care more about them than you care about what they are going to give you in return for what you're doing for them, then they will always be more grace filled and lenient and flexible, right? We always want we love this client. They're so flexible. The more you can build trust with them and build those relationships instead of just keeping it just strictly transactional, the more you're going to have some of those dream clients. So the best client relationships go way beyond a single project. Pro tip: let's send some follow-up emails or messages even after the project ends and ask how the final product is performing. Offer any tips that hey, you know what? I've been thinking about this deliverable that I gave you. Have you considered doing X with it? If so, or if not, maybe you should consider that. I think that'd be a really good way to utilize the tool that we built for you. Something like that. This shows that you're invested in their success and not just in whatever that you had to deliver them and whatever money they were going to pay you or whatever compensation that you're going to get in return. And it opens up the door for future collaboration, which always makes for a great client relationship. All right, number 6 on client management: be honest and transparent. Hopefully you've kind of caught that vibe already in the other previous 5 tips that I've given you so far. But if you can't be open or honest and transparent with your clients, it's going to negatively affect the relationship. Honesty goes a long, long way with your clients. If you run into issues, whether it's a delay or a change in direction, or you made a mistake accidentally, it doesn't matter. If you can be open and honest with them and be transparent with them along the way, they will appreciate that as professionals. They will understand at the end of the day that they're not perfect in the same way that you're not perfect. So let's get after this thing. We can course correct. Appreciate the honesty. Appreciate you being upfront and transparent about it. And then let's go on and deliver those excellent results that we all want in the first place. All right. Last one, number 7, celebrate the wins. If you're like me, your natural tendency is to finish a project or finish a book or finish a goal or whatever. And immediately you go, yeah. Okay. What's next? What's next? I don't even care about what the effect of the product or project was. Okay, on to the next thing. But if you've successfully created something, a project for a client or whatever, take a moment to celebrate that success, not just with yourself, but with your client as well. Whether it's a simple thank you email or a small gesture or a small gift, we all know when we've experienced that, like, wow, that's amazing customer service. I really like working with them. I finished with this and I got a gift basket, or I got a simple handwritten note that cost me 35 cents. I know postage is way more than 35 cents, but it cost me $1 and 5 minutes of my time to put this handwritten card in the mail to let my client know that, or let them know that I'm super appreciative of the opportunity to work with them, and that you look forward to working with them again. Celebrate that. Hey, this went really, really well. A pro tip here: you can create a portfolio or a case study of the project with your client's permission, of course, that highlights the process and the outcomes of that project. That not only serves the way to celebrate, but also provides a valuable marketing material for future clients. So that's 7 quick ways that you can elevate your client management, set clear expectations from the start, establish strong communication, be proactive with feedback, manage project scope creep, build relationships, not just transactions. In all of that, be honest and transparent and celebrate the wins. All right. So if you're looking for a way or help to level up your process or your creative output, including what you're doing with your clients, I love the opportunity to talk with you and how I can help you do that. You can reach out to me on dustinpeed.com. We can take a look at that together. I'd love to chat with you. Next week, episode 88, we're going to talk about dreaded creative blocks and ways to get around them. I can't wait to talk with you then next time on Creativity Made Easy podcast.